Hello and happy April 14th. Welcome to the Monday episode of Stand Up. I have zero guest for you today. No guest. That's right. I did it all on the weekend. I had Celeste Headley drop and then Christian Finnegan, and I was planning on taping with somebody over the weekend, but guess what? Somebody got surprised by his parents who came down on Saturday. Really nice visit with my mom and dad, who I haven't had come down here in about a year, over a year. And both my daughters have spring break this week, so we had a really nice weekend. Did my best to put my work aside and make it a family weekend, but here I am on a Monday morning with you because I do have a news segment that I produced, and enough of you have told me that that is absolutely worth it. So coming up, I've got some sound clips from the weekend shows as well as your headlines. Very happy to have you here joining me. I hope you had a good weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing you at tonight's Monday night Hangout, which I do every week that I can at 8 p.m. East. If you're a paid subscriber, you'll get a link in an email. Last Thursday, however, several of you did not get that link, so I'm not sure what happened. I will put the link in today's show email, and again tonight around 7 p.m. East. If for some reason you don't get it by then or twice, then let me know, and I will do whatever I can to fix it. But now it's time to get to those headlines and clips that I've gathered for you on today's episode of Stand Up. I'll begin with the story that it seems everybody is watching, albeit for different reasons, concerns. But yesterday evening, lawyers for Trump's Department of Justice told a federal court that the Trump administration does not believe it has a legal obligation to return Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia to the United States, despite a court order to do so. 29-year-old Abrego Garcia came to the U.S. at 2011 when he was 16 to escape threats from a gang that was terrorizing his family. He settled in Maryland with his older brother, who is a U.S. citizen. He lived there until 2019, and he was picked up by police as he waited at a Home Depot to be picked up for work as a day laborer. Police transferred him to ICE after hearing an immigration judge rejected his claim for asylum, but said he could not be sent back to El Salvador, finding it credible that a gang there, the Barrio 18 gang, had been targeting him and threatening him with death because of his family's pupusa business. Well, ever since, Abrego Garcia has checked in annually with ICE as directed. He lives with his wife and his 3 children. They have never been charged with a crime. The Department of Homeland Security issued him a work permit, and he joined a union working full-time as a sheet metal apprentice until March 12th, when ICE agents pulled his car over, told his wife to come back to get their disabled son, and incarcerated him, pressing him to say that he was a member of a gang. On March 15th, the government rendered him to the infamous Secot prison in El Salvador. On March 24th, his family sued the administration over the removal. On March 31st, the government admitted that its arrest and rendition of Abrego Garcia happened because of a, quote, administrative error, but said he could not be brought back because in El Salvador, he is outside the jurisdiction of the United States. And they also accused him of being a member of the MS-13 gang and said that bringing him back to the U.S. would threaten the public. Then on April 4th, U.S. District Court Judge Paula Zinnes ordered the government to return him to the U.S. no later than midnight on April 7th. And in her opinion, she wrote that although the legal basis for the mass removal of hundreds of individuals to El Salvador remains disturbingly unclear, Abrego Garcia's case is categorically different. There were no legal grounds whatsoever for his arrest, detention, or removal. His detention, she wrote, appears wholly lawless. It's a clear constitutional violation, yet administration officials cling to the stunning proposal they can forcibly remove any person, migrant and U.S. citizen alike, persons outside the U.S., and then boldly assert they have no way to effectuate return because they are no longer the custodian and the court thus lacks jurisdiction. That's what she wrote in her ruling. The administration also then already appealed her April 4th ruling to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then handed down a 9-0 unanimous decision last week, April 10th, requiring the Trump administration to, quote, facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador, asked the district court to clarify what it meant to effectuate that release. That was the loophole, that word apparently, noting that it must give due regard for the deference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs. But the administration evidently does not intend to comply. On April 11th, the lawyer representing the government, a guy named Drew Ensign, said that he did not have information about where Abrego Garcia is and ignored her order to provide information about what the government was doing to bring him back. Well, Saturday, it said Abrego Garcia is alive and secure in that prison. And then last night, They said they had no new information about him and said that he is no longer eligible for the immigration judge's order not to send him to El Salvador because of his membership in MS-13, which is now a designated foreign terrorist organization. There is still no evidence that he is a member of MS-13. And yesterday, administration lawyers used the Supreme Court's warning that the court must give due regard for the deference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs to lay out a chilling argument, which is this. They ignored the Supreme Court's agreement that the government must get Abrego Garcia out of El Salvador, as well as the court's requirement that the administration explain what it's doing to make that happen. Instead, lawyers argued that because Abrego Garcia is now outside the country, any attempt to get him back would intrude on the president's power to conduct foreign affairs. Similarly, they argued that the president cannot be ordered to do anything but remove domestic obstacles from Abrego Garcia's return. Heather Cox Richardson writes, let's be very clear about exactly what's happening here. President Donald J. Trump is claiming the power to ignore the due process of the law guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, declare someone is a criminal, kidnap them, send them to a prison in a third country, and then claim there's no way to get that person back. Except for all people in the United States are entitled to due process. That has always been the case. That is supposedly what makes America great. But Trump and his officers have tried to convince Americans that non-citizens are not entitled to due process. They've also pushed the idea that they are offshoring criminals. But a Bloomberg investigation showed that of the 238 men sent to this horrible prison, the first group, only 5 of them had been charged with or convicted of felony assault or gun violations. 3 had been charged with misdemeanors like petty theft. 2 were charged with human smuggling. In any case, in the U.S., criminals are still entitled to due process. And make no mistake, as Supreme Court Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson recently warned, if the administration can take non-citizens off the streets, render them to prison in another country, and then claim it's helpless to correct the error, either because the person is out of reach of the U.S. jurisdiction, it could do the same thing to citizens, to American citizens. And Trump said he would, quote, love to do exactly that and would even be, quote, honored to do that. Also, there's reporting that former Blackwater CEO Eric Prince is pitching a plan to expand renditions to El Salvador to at least 100,000 criminal offenders from U.S. prisons and to avoid legal challenges by making that area where the prison is in El Salvador an American territory, then leasing it back to the El Salvador to run. So that's the plan, and it's absolutely terrifying. Finally, Heather Cox Richardson in today's newsletter, Letters from American, writes, here's the thing. Once you give up the idea that we are all equal before the law and have the right to due process, you've given up the whole game. You've admitted the principle that some people have more rights than others. Once you have replaced the principle of equality before the law with the idea that some people have no rights, you've granted your approval the idea of an authoritarian government. At that point, all you can do is hope that the dictator and his henchmen overlook you. So that is where we're at. It's real scary. It's very important. And my view is that the fact that so many Americans know this man's name and are continuing to protest will hopefully give some pause to the administration and the authorities. My view is that people fighting back and being in the streets and naming names does matter. So I believe that your voice matters, and everybody protesting this and caring about this matters. And the most important thing is that we care about the people that we do not know. And that takes me to the big rally in Los Angeles over the weekend with Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and a lot of others who were saying just that. And I'll have some audio clips for you coming up. I think that was a really big and important rally, and that is where I want to go next in terms of our news stories. Los Angeles Times says, at packed LA rally, Bernie Sanders says U.S. facing extraordinary danger. The rally drew tens of thousands of people in downtown LA, and they are continuing on this tour, quote, fighting oligarchy tour. And they're mostly stopping in areas represented by Republican members of Congress that the Democrats hope to oust in the 2026 election. The tour kicked off in Omaha in late February. It's also made stops in Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona, and Colorado. Bernie Sanders said he's hiring organizers in some of those districts, including in Iowa and Nebraska. So I think that's really good news that they're doing these rallies as the Democratic Party's popularity continues to sag. This is one of the best things I've seen, best efforts I've seen anyone make in a long time. And kudos to both Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and everybody else who is speaking at these rallies, and most importantly, those who are in attendance at these rallies. In other news, a man has been arrested for allegedly setting fire to the governor of Pennsylvania's mansion, the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. Police arrested a suspect after it was set fire while his family was sleeping. Everybody in Josh Shapiro's family are okay. He's come out and made a statement, and apparently there has been an arrest. 38-year-old man turned himself into police. He's been charged with attempted murder, aggravated arson, terrorism, and other charges in connection with the fire, just hours after Shapiro and his family hosted a Passover dinner. Apparently, the suspect said he was angry with the governor and would have beaten him with a hammer if confronted. So I'm glad that didn't happen, but a scary story for Josh Shapiro and his family, and politicians obviously continue to be under threat, and that is the latest there. I'm sure we'll learn more about his motivation. Moving on to other stories, Ukraine says 32 people were killed by a Russian ballistic missile strike. Now, this is 81 days since the day that our president promised he would easily end the war with one phone call to Vladimir Putin. Putin continues to bomb civilians daily while Donald Trump is playing golf and doing nothing. Trump gave his fourth warning, however, to Putin on Friday after warning him in January, February, and March. Putin responded by bombing civilians again. Of course, our president has no solutions, only promises, idle threats, except to our allies, and chaos. So there's that news. Also, we heard some news that the president says he's planning to pause deportations for illegal immigrants employed in agriculture, hospitality, and other industries. So I guess they're not all rapists and killers, and they contribute to our economy? Okay, well, we'll see if that actually happens, these exemptions. And speaking of exemptions, apparently there are also going to be exemptions on electronics imported to the U.S. from the tariffs that the stupid president has put in effect, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And then we are told that these tariffs are apparently temporary, and then president said that no country is off the hook and that there wouldn't be any exemptions. It's super confusing what is happening. Hard to keep track of it, but there's no doubt that I think prices on electronics are going to increase, and everything else, it would seem. And a headline over at the New York Times this morning, China halts critical exports as trade war intensifies. Beijing has suspended exports of certain rare earth materials and magnets that are crucial for the world's car, semiconductor, and aerospace industries. And I just can't imagine how this can go on very long at all. But that's where we are at today, and we'll see where we're at tomorrow on this and so many other issues, including, let me just mention, the CDC has a program called Prevention's Vessel Sanitation Program, and that's the agency whose job it is to investigate outbreaks and conduct health inspections on cruise ships. Well, all of the full-time employees there are now off the job, so good luck on your cruise. Not sure exactly what the fallout of that is going to be, but it doesn't sound like a good idea or a good cut to be making. Well, one of the more, or rather less controversial cabinet nominees was the head of the Interior, Secretary of the Interior, former North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. Well, it turns out he is pretty controversial. The great company REI, the outdoor sports outfitter, has issued an apology for its endorsement of Doug Burgum. Last year, environmental groups warned against supporting then-Governor for Interior Secretary, arguing the former businessman would sacrifice federal lands in the name of increasing profits for fossil fuel companies. But REI, which presents itself as a pro-environmental company, defied these groups in January when it signed onto a letter supporting his nomination. Well, since becoming secretary, he has proposed using federal lands for affordable housing and affirmed environmental groups' worst fears by doubling down on Trump's attempt to restore the coal industry. And now REI, via its new president, is regretting that endorsement. And they put out a video message saying it was a mistake and that our public lands are under attack, and we could have told you that. You should have listened to environmental activists. Let's see, what else can I mention here in the headlines. Tesla sales in the United States fell almost 9% in the first 3 months of the year, even as overall market for electric vehicles grew. And you know what else is down? Visits to America. Particularly Canadians are freezing visits to the U.S. over Trump. That's the headline at Politico. Tourism from the North tanks amid annexation talk, tariff whiplash, and border stops. Tour buses to New York City are being canceled. Cross-border day trips for shopping are thinning out, and travel agencies are seeing a steep drop-off, too. Travel from Canada is expected to plummet 20% this year, costing the United States $3.4 billion in lost revenue. And we're going to see a lot more of that, not only from Canada, but from Europe and pretty much everywhere else. But at least we're making America great again. All right. Well, those are the headlines that I've gathered for you here on a Monday. I've got a whole bunch of audio clips that I want to share. So let's get to the clip show now. I want to start with this rant from some random TikToker that I found that I thought captured exactly how I and so many of you feel about what it means to be a Trump supporter in today's America. I think that's a pretty good enough setup. Here he is. And forgive me for not knowing his name.
Trump could absolutely tank the economy, like full-on crash it into the ground. And his supporters will still be out here waving flags and chanting his name like he's the second coming. Why? Because as long as he gives them permission to be racist, homophobic, and just generally ignorant as hell, they don't care what else he burns down around them. He could raise their taxes, gut their health care, sell their house from under them, and they'd still be like, yep, he tells it like it is. No, he tells you like you wish you could, without consequences. That's the appeal. It's not about policy. It's not about jobs. It's not even about America anymore. It's about power and permission. Permission to hate. Permission to blame everyone else for your problems. Trump is the middle finger they get to wave at progress, at diversity, at change, at anyone who makes them feel uncomfortable or left behind. And they're fine watching it all burn. The economy, the country, the future. As long as they get to feel like the real Americans again. It's not patriotism, it's resentment, dressed up in a red hat and wrapped in a flag. And if you're not seeing that by now, you're not paying attention, or worse, you're rooting for the fire too.
Yeah, no notes. There you go. I thought that was pitch perfect, and I really appreciated it. So much so that I actually printed it and posted it online at Facebook and wherever else allows you to post that many words. So check it out, and let me know if you disagree with anything that guy said or if you'd put it differently. All right, let's go to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in L.A. at the Stopping Oligarchy, Fighting Oligarchy tour, as I thought this was also really, really well said.
We can stand with one another and stand for ourselves. And we might come from different places, but we share the same experiences. So to all who came here today unsure of whether this is where you belong, I want to say that you do. No matter if you have all the right words to say, no matter your race, religion, gender identity, or status, no matter if you disagree with me on some things. But if you are willing to fight for someone that you don't know, you are welcome here. If you are willing to fight for working people regardless of who they are, how they identify, you are welcome here. Because here, everyone is valued. But we have to stand together. We cannot be tempted to turn in our neighbors or be fooled into thinking that we are really that much different from a trans kid who wants to get accepted by their friends. That we're that different from a dreamer who worked to go to college and try to provide for their family. That we're that different from anyone who's not like us. Hate is a trap that sinks us all. And it is standing together without exception to reject division. That is the only way we can win. It's the only way we can win.
Yeah, real good stuff from AOC. Caring about people you don't know, fighting for people you don't know, fighting for working people. I love what she's saying. It resonates so much with me. I completely share that value set. I know so many of you do, obviously, as well. And there is more. Let's go to Bernie and we'll go back to AOC. We'll flip back and forth.
You know, it's funny. Just yesterday, our good friend Elon Musk Mr. Musk sent out a tweet, and in essence, he said, you know, Bernie Sanders has been talking about the growth of oligarchy year after year after year. Well, Elon, you're damn right. That's what I've been talking about. The difference is I'm no longer talking about how we're moving to oligarchy. I'm talking about how we are living today in an oligarchic form of society. 3 months ago, when Trump was inaugurated, standing right behind him during his inauguration were the three wealthiest people in this country, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg. And right behind them were 13 other billionaires who Trump had nominated to head up major federal agencies. And that, brothers and sisters, is what oligarchy is all about.
Indeed. Let's head back to AOC and see what she has to say.
These facts of life, the feeling of the water rising up to our throats, the impossibility to afford anything easily, the fear of speaking up, the deeply bitter and toxic division driven more by algorithms on social media than individual thought, the crumbling of our rights and protections. Understand that all of this is what it means and what it feels like to be governed by billionaires. This is what oligarchy feels like, and it only will get worse until we act. It is this system that relies on division to legislate greed that has brought us the most corrupt administration in American history and the Republican majorities to support it. Big money is how we got Donald Trump.
In America, one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. And let me tell you something about the oligarchs. They are very, very religious people. But their religion is not based on doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Their religion is not based on love or justice. Their religion is based on greed, greed, and more greed. All over this country, in Vermont, California, all over this country, we have a serious problem with drug addiction, with alcoholism, with other forms of addiction. But in my honest opinion, the most serious addiction crisis we face is the addiction of the oligarchy toward greed. They got billions and billions of dollars. It's not enough. They need more. And if they have to step on the poor and the disabled and working class people, that is what they will do unless we stop them, and we will stop them.
And his whole presidency began with launching tools for bribery, meme coins to fleece working people and move around money in the dark, extortion settlements from media companies and law firms who gladly pay them.
Your presence here today, and by the way, there are some 36,000 of you, the largest rally that we have ever had. And your presence here today is making Donald Trump and Elon Musk very nervous.
Well, I sure hope so. Elon Musk said all those people were paid. Well, I hope so. Where's my money? Paid organizers. Paid attendees at these rallies, which of course is preposterous. All right, well, that is all I've got for you from the rally. Apparently then Bernie Sanders, though, went over to Coachella, which is this huge concert in the desert in California they were having, and he addressed thousands and thousands of people there as well, which I thought was pretty great, pretty smart, and apparently they were all fairly receptive, I guess. All right, let's head to some more clips I've got for you. Here's Kilmar Abrego Garcia's lawyer yesterday. Here's just a quick clip of him.
Question. And your position is you know nothing about his current state.
No, neither we nor the family have been able to make any contact with him. This is one of the principal human rights violations that occurs in that facility, is that inmates and detainees in that facility are held incommunicado.
All right, well, there you go. That was Kilmar Abrego Garcia's lawyer. They are not giving up anytime soon. Now let's head over to Friday night's episode of Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO. I rarely play clips from the show, which I was on in, 2018, I think it was, at some point. I was trying to think exactly when it was. But the show has really taken a dive, in my opinion. I still like the format. I actually still like Bill Maher's monologue and some of the comedy bits from it. But I do not like the guest booking. And yet I thought it was pretty interesting that Josh Rogan, who I generally do like and have had some issues with in the past, but anyway, he was on with Piers Morgan, and there he is confronting Bill Maher, who last week went and had dinner with President Trump at the White House, and the entire internet seemed to react negatively to that. Bill Maher was trending all day Saturday, mostly with negative opinions of it, but I thought this is perfectly put by Josh Rogan. I fully agree with him. Bill Maher got used by Trump, and Bill Maher didn't much like Josh Rogan saying that, but I give him a lot of credit for saying it right to Bill Maher's face. Here it is.
To report exactly what I saw. I did it to the best of my abilities.
Counterpoint?
As I can be. Yes.
Counterpoint?
Yeah.
Bill, I think you're right in saying that people have made too much of this, okay? It's not the Ulta Summit. You're not Churchill. Kid Rock is not Stalin. Trump sure shit isn't FDR, okay? So, yes, I believe too much has been made about this, but I think you've fallen into the trap. I think that I represent 99% of the internet when I say this, is that you've played the game of proximity is principle. And what people are worried about is not your motivation. We believe you. We love you, Bill. Everybody loves Bill, right? So I'm not questioning your motivation. I'm questioning Trump's, okay? And if we can say that you went there in good faith, but maybe, just maybe, he wasn't there in good faith. I mean, you sold him on the Iran deal and he took it in. I mean, give me a break, okay? So the idea here is that your motivation is sound, but what's the impact? And I think a lot of people out there, fans of yours, people who love you, people who are fans of you, like me, I've been fans of you.
You don't have to patronize me, dude. I don't know you. I never met you.
I'm just saying that this comes from
not everybody has to like it. That's what we said. There are people who didn't want it to happen at all. You sound like one of them. It's okay. No. But did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
Like, what is the alternative to not talking? Just sit at your lunch table and don't talk to anybody?
I talk to him. I've interviewed Trump. Here's the interview.
That's just not an interview. This was not an interview.
I agree with the principle of engagement. I'm just saying, from his perspective, you have to understand that people out there know, all Americans know, that for him this was a PR stunt, and in his view, you were a prop in that PR stunt. Okay.
Yeah, you see, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
That doesn't mean it wasn't the right thing to do. It just
But if you go on social media for 5 minutes now, you just have these tribal fury raging all day long. Everyone's got to be implacably there, implacably here. And actually, most Americans and most Brits, they're not like that. So there's this screaming going on between these tribes, and actually walking across that line, sitting down, having dinner, having a laugh, having a chat. And then the idea that Bill Maher is now going to stop criticizing Donald Trump with him is preposterous.
I didn't do it before. I didn't do it in the monologue. I didn't do it with Steve Bannon. And the fact that you began your little rant with the internet, that tells me everything. You take your cues from the internet. Good luck.
No. Listen.
The internet is a cesspool that just wants to fight.
Oh, yeah, he had Steve Bannon on. He platformed Steve Bannon as well. Somebody emailed me and said, I thought it was good that he had Bannon on because Bannon basically said that Trump is going to run for a third term. And whoever that was that emailed me said they thought that was important that more people heard that was the plan. So I don't know if I agree with that or not, but it was an interesting comment. All right, let's get to another interesting clip. I saw Jon Stewart interviewing Pete Buttigieg. I admire both these guys a lot, smart guys. So I thought I'd include a 4-minute clip of Pete Buttigieg telling Jon Stewart his thoughts on trade and tariffs.
By the way, speaking of tantrums, how are you absorbing this new tariff regime in the world? I would imagine you wouldn't argue the point that the idea of renegotiating certain trade barriers or those types of things wouldn't be a worthy pursuit. I imagine you would take issue with the table overturning tantrum way of doing it. How are you absorbing this general shock?
Look, I grew up in northern Indiana. I live in Michigan. Like, I get what the wrong kind of trade has done to the industrial Midwest, because I grew up surrounded by collapsing factories. And part of that was because of technology. Part of that was because of automation. Part of that was because of trade and the way it was handled. And we spent the last, I think, 30 years coming to a new understanding as a country about what we need to do. And sometimes that means tariffs. Look, the last administration, there were tariffs, but tariffs are supposed to be a tool, a political and economic tool, in order to get some kind of advantage for the people you serve. This is not that, because in order for it to work, first of all, you have to know what you're doing. It was a conservative think tank just found out that there was just a basic math error in how they came up with these numbers.
They divided the deficit and then the goods, and isn't that reciprocal tariffs? Isn't that how it's done?
It's not, it turns out. And that actually matters when trillions of dollars depend on, first of all, what you do, and secondly, how you do it. Is it consistent? Do people understand? I mean, people are making decisions right this minute. Small businesses are deciding whether to go through with an order or not. Businesses of all sizes are deciding whether to make an investment or not, whether to hire somebody or not. I already talk to a lot of people. I spend a day a week at the University of Chicago talking to students. A bunch of them, these seniors, are graduating, got job offers. Then they got the job offers withdrawn, right? There was already tons of uncertainty about hiring. That was before the tariffs. And that's true whether you're a college graduate looking to get a job at a bank or something. It's true whether you're, hoping as a construction worker that a project is going to go forward near you. The investment's not just numbers on a page. These are decisions that very quickly go to our everyday lives. So the biggest things I'm watching is, one, of course, how hard is this going to hit us in terms of prices? Right. That's the immediate thing. I mean, a tariff is a tax. The price we pay goes up.
Will it be prices though? Because as you collapse the economy, nobody will purchase anything. So maybe the way this works is, sure, it raises the prices of certain things, but what if we won't buy anything? If consumption goes down so drastically?
That gets you to number two. The other thing I'm really watching is the jobs part, right? Like, what's this going to do to people's jobs? It's hard enough to have those price increases if you continue to have a full employment economy, right? One where more or less it's true that if you want a job, you can get a job. It's a whole other thing to deal with that kind of elevated prices, inflation, at the same time as you're dealing with a recession. And now a recession has gone from being viewed as pretty unlikely a year ago or even 3 months ago to being viewed as better than a coin flip by most of the people who have spent their lives figuring out whether we're likely to go into a recession or not. It is a frightening cocktail, especially for people who are living close to the edge, who are paycheck to paycheck, who weren't sure whether you're going to be able to, right? If you're a billionaire, if you're like most of the people in the president's cabinet right now, or a multimillionaire like most members of the U.S. Congress, then okay, this may not be your problem overnight.
You can ride it out. If you're a billionaire, you can probably ride it out.
You'll probably be okay, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But for so many people, this is not a game. This is not just something that's of interest because you like watching the news. Like, this is people's lives. And obviously, with the stock market taking the turn that it has the last few days, that's people's retirements. And that's not just, people sitting on giant trust funds. That's ordinary people who've been saving up all their lives.
Yeah, there you go. I thought that was really interesting. And now let's head over to CNN, where three very funny people who I absolutely love are hosting a great show on Saturday night. It's called Have I Got News for You, with Roy Wood Jr. as host, but he also has Amber Ruffin and our friend Michael Ian Black on. And I thought this was a pretty interesting little bit from Roy Wood, and you'll hear Amber chime in here as well, which I liked.
As crazy as things got Wednesday morning, what do you think happened in the afternoon?
The bonds had tuckered themselves out.
Here's CNN with the answer.
The president announcing just minutes ago that he's now, quote, authorized a 90-day pause on some of his new tariffs.
But not for China. Trump says China's tariffs are now at 125%.
The next day, the White House clarified that China's tariff rate was actually 145%. Question: how did China react to being the odd country out?
They, I believe, said, whatever you do, I can do better, and raised the stakes on their end, I think.
It's what we deserve.
That's a very eloquent way of where I'm from, we call it, bitch please. Shortly after the announcement, China hit the United States back with 84% tariffs, then raised them to 125%, and then called for the world to unite against Trump tyranny. Tyranny. China told people to unite against tyranny. The country that has no term limits.
All right. And finally, I've got some more comedy for you. It's Michael Che and Colin Jost. It's the Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live.
Well, this week, President Trump tried to rescue the economy from the disastrous policies of whoever was president last week. On Wednesday, Trump announced he was pausing most tariffs for 90 days. Now, 90 days may not seem like a long time, but remember, Trump has only been president for 82 days, and it already feels like a goddamn decade. Just hours before Trump paused the tariffs, he tried to calm investors by posting, "Be cool. Everything is going to work out well." Be cool? This is the global economy. It's not like we got too high and we're trying to get through dinner with our parents. The CEOs of many tech companies who supported President Trump's campaign have said they were surprised by all of his tariffs. Well, yeah, I mean, he hardly ever mentioned them.
We're going to have so much money coming in from tariffs.
Tariffs on pharmaceuticals, tariffs on steel, car tariffs, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, substantial tariffs, 10% tariffs,
25% tariffs,
50% tariffs, big tariffs, 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 tariffs,
tariffs.
I love tariffs.
It's like listening to Bubba Gump talk about shrimp.
Trump responded to the fallout from his tariffs saying sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. Yeah, but this feels like we took a whole bottle of medicine with a glass of vodka and laid in a warm bath. It was reported that Elon Musk personally appealed to President Trump to stop his tariff plan, and it worked. The stock market went up like this.
And here they show a picture of Elon Musk giving the Nazi salute, the Roman salute, and he's like basically hanging out, arm is aiming up. That's the joke. I like to explain it because Carlo told me when there's pictures. Anyway.
China's retaliatory tariffs will hurt U.S. farmers who sell products to China that they can't sell elsewhere, including chicken feet, which means those chickens will now have to sell their feet on OnlyFans.
A new report shows that if iPhones were manufactured in the U.S., they could cost up to $3,500, which is a lot, but remember, your kids would get an employee discount. The U.S. Education Department has launched a website in which students can report public school teachers who violate anti-DEI rules. So remember, teachers, you got to sleep with the white ones, too.
Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose beauty routine involves rolling around under those 7-Eleven hot dog lamps, said he plans to tell the CDC to stop recommending that fluoride be put in drinking water and start recommending veneers for kids. It was reported that several White House officials are refusing to answer messages from journalists if their email signatures include identifying pronouns, which is extremely frustrating for New York Times reporter her, they, them.
All right, there you go. And that is what I've got for you today. Your headlines and your clips. Normally, I would have a guest right here, but didn't happen and still wanted to put this show together. And so there you have it. I posted on Facebook over the weekend a couple things that I hope to leave you with here today, which is I wrote, I don't want to brag, but I got a lot of friends and I talked to a lot of people. And it would seem that everyone is on edge and feeling so stressed and worries in ways they might never have before. So, yeah, it's not just you. I try to keep mindful of the chatter in my head and change the subject whenever possible. Meditation helps me do that. I highly recommend. I'm taking so much joy in the good things, moments, and people. And a lot of people had thoughts on that, and I want to talk more about that at our Hangouts. And again, quoting Ram Dass, I think it was our friend Dr. Terry Ashby who mentioned this last week at a Hangout. Whether this is the first day of the apocalypse or the first day of the golden age, the work remains the same. Love each other and ease as much suffering as possible. Good old Ram Dass. Love it. That's what I've got for you today. I hope to see you tonight at our Hangout, and I will talk to you tomorrow right here on Stand Up. Thanks so much for your support and for listening.
When the tyrants taunt you and the sirens teach you, better stand up, let the brave meet the